Give me 1 second. There we go. Alright guys, so we are going to start at the top of Learning Module 3. If you guys have any questions, just let me know as we keep going. This is a pretty long section. There is a lot in here. It talks about decimals, fractions, and percents and how to convert them between each other. There are several homework sections as well as competency check 3 and 5 and time management part 1, a small, I guess, part of a project. So I'm going to start with some of the basics, unless, of course, there's an area you guys want me to start with. Okay, so I am just going to start with the first section, and I'll skip around as I see fit unless someone asks me a specific question. Okay, Learning Module 3 starts with the basics. We have writing the decimal in numbers. So as you can see, there are words here. So we would actually have to type in what we're reading. It says 95 hundredths. So this means that we need to know our place values. I know that the first place value is a tenth, and then we have hundredths. So 95 hundredths would cover both of those places. Let me skip around a little bit. 45 and 85 hundredths, the word and stands for our decimal. So we're going to say 55. I think I read it as 45 the first time. 55 and is my decimal. 85 hundredths. Very good. Okay, question number 6 is asking us to round to the nearest tenth. And technically, whenever we need to round, we actually are going to look at the number next to the place value we're concerned about. And so it asked me to round to the nearest tenth, which means that 6 is the number I'm wondering about. So I need to look to the number to the right. Okay. Christian, just let me know what section specifically so I can make sure I go to it. So I'm going to round this decimal here to the 10th place. I'm going to look at the 8. Since the 8 is 5 or more, that means my 6 is going to go up. So my answer here would just be 0.7 because, again, I'm only rounding to the 10th place. Everything after that place changes to a 0. Let's see what section. So the division in this section, Learning Module 3. Okay. So it says round this decimal to the nearest hundredth. So we have the 6 is in the 10th place. The 5 is in the hundredths place. So we got tenths, hundredths, and then the 2 is in the tenths, hundredths, thousandths place. So I need to round to hundredths place. So the 5 is the one I'm concerned about. When I look to the right, the 2 is too small. So I'm actually going to round this to just 0.65. You guys have any questions about rounding? In order to round, you have to know the actual place value, okay? Let me see what else we have here. We have some questions about division. So adding and subtracting decimals, the big thing there is just making sure you line the decimals up. Multiplying decimals, you just count the decimal places at the end. But it seems like I have some questions about dividing decimals, so I'm going to go ahead to section 3D and look for that. Okay, with the fractions. Okay, so we'll hurry up and get to those for the division. Okay, when dividing decimals without a calculator, you got to do a couple things. So this is 37.44 divided by 3.6. So when I set it up by hand, I want to make sure I put the 3.6 on the outside and the 37.44 on the inside. And the thing here is that the number that I'm dividing by has to be a whole number. So in order for this to be a whole number, I need to move the decimal one time. If I move this decimal one time, I also have to move this decimal one time. So that basically means I get a brand new division problem. Now I can start to do this division by hand. Let me just change my color. So what I usually do is I usually put the decimal in the answer right away, because then I don't have to try to figure out where it goes later. 36 cannot go into 3, but it can go in 37 one time. So notice my 1 goes right above the 37. And then I'm going to subtract to get a remainder of 1. I'm going to bring down the 4. 36 cannot go into 14, so I'm going to put a 0 there. When I bring down another 4, now I have 144. So I'm going to estimate, I'm going to say that 36 goes into 144 probably about 4 times. Let's see what that is. There we go. So I'm going to put that 4 right above, and you can see I get a remainder of 0. So my final answer here would just be 10.4. Okay, so we're going to look at some of the divisions with the remainder. No, you don't usually keep dividing. Usually if the remainder never ends, the instruction should say, you know, go to the third decimal place or so on. If you find one that doesn't, let me know so I can either delete it or fix it. So let me see if I can find one with the remainder. I mean, like the question asks you to write the remainder separately. I'm trying to see if any of these have a repeating decimal. Okay, did I answer it? Okay, cool. No, you shouldn't stop unless it says so. And if it doesn't say so, then that means the instructions are not accurate. What about some of these? A case of 4 items costs $4.64 at Costco. What is the price of each item? Obviously, we would need to divide this to find that out. We'd have 464 divided by 4. Again, I always bring my decimal up in the answer. 4 goes into 4 once. Bring down the 6. That goes once. Remainder of 2. Bring down the 4. So here we have $1.16 each. Alright, so let's go on. I think someone mentioned something about fractions. So let me get to that section. Remember, when you guys take the midterm and the final, it's without a calculator, so don't take doing this stuff by hand for granted. Let's see, we got fractions and decimals. And then we have comparing decimals and fractions. So let's look at 3E and see what they have there. Okay, just let me know if you see something that you are struggling with. So in this question number 1 is saying write the decimal 6/10 as a fraction. The cool thing about writing decimals to fractions is, one, you have to know place value. So notice I called this 6/10 because the 6 is in the tenths place. So when I write it as a fraction, I'm actually going to write it 6 over 10. So the denominator is always the place value of the decimal. Okay? And then it also says lowest terms, so that means we need to simplify. 6 and 10 are both divisible by 2, so I'm going to end up with 3/5. I'm going to go ahead and type that in. I like to always preview it and submit. Okay, so I'm just going to skip around a little bit. Okay, here it wants us to convert the fraction -3/7 to a decimal. round your answer to 3 decimal places. So in order to convert a fraction to a decimal, essentially what you need to do is just divide. So this is 3 divided by 7. And technically the whole number 3 has a decimal after 3. So again, I always like to put my decimal up in my answer first, so I don't have to try to figure out where to put it later. I'm just going to change my color here. The other thing I want you to notice is that it's a positive number divided by negative, so I know my final answer is going to be a negative. I'm not really going to worry about that while I'm here. So 7 cannot go into 3, which is why I'm going to put a 0 above the 3. But 7 can go into 30. It can go into 34 times. I get a 28, and I get a remainder of 2. I'm going to go ahead and bring down the 0. 7 can go into 20 twice. I get a 14, remainder of 6, bring down another 0. 7 can go to 60, I'd say 8 times, because it would give me 56. Remainder of 4, I'm just going to write over here, bring down another 0. Now, the reason I'm bringing down another 0 is it says it wants me to round the 3 decimal places. Well, here's my 3 decimal places, but in order to round, I have to find out, well, what is this 4th number here? So 7 can go into 40 how many times? I'd say 5 times. That'll give me 35, and I'm not really going to worry about that remainder there. So this 5 is big enough to change my 8 to a 9. So my final answer here is going to be negative 0.429. You guys have any questions about that one? Okay. Let's see what's that. I know. The fractions always gets everybody. Alright, so let's see what else we have here. Again, if there's a specific one you want me to go to, just let me know, okay? Because I'm just going to kind of skip around and look for it. Again, this one, converting a fraction to a decimal, we have to actually do the division. And it's telling us to round to nearest thousand. So we got tenths, hundredths, thousands. So I have to go 4 places to see. So 5 divided by 8. Again, we want to go ahead and add the decimal and the 0. 8 cannot go into 5, but it can go into 50, I'd say 6 times. Gives me a 48. Remainder of 2. Bring down another 0. We're going to go twice. 16, 4, bring down 0. 5. And we get 0. So thousands place, this 0 is not big enough, so I should just get a 0.625 here. Any questions about that part? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go down to the bottom to see what kind of problems they have there. Here's just the order of operations with decimals. I'll go ahead and do one since I haven't actually done any decimals yet. Order of operations, say we're going to go ahead and do parentheses first. When it comes to adding and subtracting decimals, you have to make sure you line them up, line your decimals up properly. And you're going to have to borrow in this case. So since I cannot take, and your answer is going to fall right underneath the decimals in your problem. Since you cannot take 3 from 1, I'm going to go ahead and borrow from the 7 and make that a 6. So this becomes 11. 11 minus 3 is actually going to be 8. There's my decimal. 6 minus 3 gives me 3. And I'd be done there. So here I have 14.9 plus 7.6 times 3.8. So now you have to do the 7.6 times the 3.8. When it comes to multiplying, you don't really need to line them up. You're just going to count them at the end. So I am going to change my color again. 8 times 6 is 48. Carry the 4. 8 times 7 is 56. Plus 4 is 60. When you go to do 3 times 6, you got to make sure you end in a space. So 3 times 6 is 18. Carry the 1. 3 times 7 is 21. Here's my 22. Going to go ahead and add everything down. And again, I had 2 decimal places. So my answer from that multiplication would be 28.88. So last but not least, I have the 14.9 plus the 28.88. Again, when you're adding, you're going to make sure you line them up. You're going to get 8, 16, 17. Bring down my decimal. That's a 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 2, 3, and 4. So my final answer is 43.78. Okay, let me move on to something a little more challenging. That's the same thing we've been working on. So let me see what else is in this section. I'm going to look for some more fractions because I think that is what drives everyone crazy. Let's see, we have some. Let me look in 3F maybe. Again, if there's somewhere you guys want me to go, just let me know. So here we have the decimal point 13, and they want us to convert it to a percent. The easy thing about going from decimals to percents is all you're going to do is move the decimal 2 times to your right. So 13.13 is really just going to be 13%. Same thing here. I have 0.36. I want to write it as a percent. I'm going to move twice to my right, so that's going to give me 36%. The exact opposite is going from percent to decimal. This time we're going to actually move 2 places to our left. So here we're 29%. The decimal is technically right here. So 2 places to my left, the equivalent decimal would be 0.29. Now, whenever I'm going from a fraction to a percent, what I usually like to do is take my fraction to a decimal first and then go a decimal to a percent. I just find it to be easier. So 1/2, to change that to a decimal, I'm going to do the division and just get 0.50. Once I get this decimal to get a percent, it's just going to go ahead and be 50%. Take note that the percent symbol is already there, so all you got to do is type in the 50. Any specific piece you guys want me to go to? You want me to talk about the time management project? Okay. So the first part of the time management project is pretty easy. It actually only requires you to do is to print out this document. So you need to click on this PDF right here, and it should open up for you. And you should go ahead and print this. Okay. The first part is a pre-test. There are no right or wrong answers. It's just you kind of answering questions about your habits. The higher your number, the worse your time management. The lower your number, the better your time management. That's essentially what you'll find out here in that first part. This second page is actually just instructions. You do not need to turn this page in. You should just read this for yourself. It talks about keeping track of your time. And this second part, the weekly routine worksheet. This is the part that I want you guys to return, as well as this page here. So this first part is all about your estimations. So for example, hours of sleep each night times 7. So I probably need 7 or 8 hours a night, a sleep a night, but I don't actually get that many. I probably get about 5. So here I would say that in 1 week I probably get about 35 hours of sleep. So just fill it in with a pen, print it out and write it with a pencil. Hours spent grooming, shower, getting ready, ironing your clothes, brushing your teeth, doing your hair, your makeup, all that kind of stuff. Times 7. Again, we're talking about a 1 week period. So I would say I probably take about an hour a day, maybe an hour and a half a day for grooming. So I would say 1.5 times 7 is 10 and a half hours. I would write 10 and a half hours here. Number of hours for food, meals, and snacks per day. This involves cooking the meals, or if you're going out to eat, waiting in line, all those kinds of things. How long do you really spend? Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, whatever that may be. These numbers will be different for everyone. It also wants you to figure out your travel time. It's kind of assuming that you do one thing for 5 days a week and something else twice a week. You figure out how many hours a week you're commuting, spending in a car, okay? Or on a bus, or riding a bike, or running, or whatever the case may be. Figure out what that is and give me one number for the whole week. Hours per week you're in meetings. So this is church, volunteer. Maybe you're on some kind of step team, or, who knows. You're in just extracurricular activities. How much time per week do you spend doing those things? You're going to put them here. Hours per week running errands, chores, doing dishes, washing clothes, sweeping and mopping the floor, mowing the lawn, washing the car, whatever those things are. Maybe you take your mom to the doctor every week. Whatever those things are. How much time do you spend doing it per week? You're going to put that number here. However many hours per week you work, you put that next. Hours in class. So if you're in a face-to-face class, obviously that's pretty easy to count. If you're in an online class, you want to count about 3 to 4 hours per week as your sitting time. You spend more than that studying, but as for sitting time, for this online class, I would say 3 to 4 hours. Okay, so put how much you're in class there. Number of hours for fun. This is Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, ESPN, Lifetime, any of those shows you guys watch, any of that stuff, video games. You're going to put that here. And be realistic about how much time you spend per week doing that. Now you can see in this line right here, it says subtract the above number from 168. So you want to add all these numbers together. And whatever the total, it's going to be 168 minus that number. And that is because in 7 days, there's 168 hours in a week. So if this number is more than 168 hours, that means that you have some time management things you need to handle. If this number, when you add it together, is less than 168, that essentially represents the amount of time you have left to study, and that is what you will put here. Okay, so this is all an estimate. And if this number ends up being more than 168, that's okay. That just means you have something you have to fix. In this second part, I want you to be more specific. I want you to actually estimate when you're doing these things. When are you grooming? When are you sleeping? When are you eating? When are you at work? When are you in class? Again, it's a pretty good estimate. You don't have to tell me everything about your personal life. You can keep it in these categories. And so these are the 2 pages. After you're done filling them out, you're going to scan them and save them to your desktop. And so again, I'm trying to give you a hint. These are the categories you should kind of be breaking your weekly 168 hours into. And it's important because this is going to help you do part 2, which is due in Learner Module 4. After you've printed those and filled those out, you're going to go ahead and actually click on the time management project assignment, the actual assignment, not the PDF. And this is where you will be given the option to browse your computer and go ahead and submit those. Okay? So, do you guys have any questions about that so far? It's not a difficult assignment, but I do find that some students just choose not to do it for whatever reason, and it really does hurt their grade. It's not really asking for too much. We're going to turn these numbers into fractions, decimals, and percents in the next part. That's fine. If you wanted to, you can have kept track of your week, or you can be predicting next week. Um, Whatever it is, though, I want it to be realistic. You guys should get something from it. Okay? Do you guys have any questions about that part? Okay. Well, if you guys don't have any more questions, I'm going to let you go. You know you can text me or email me questions. I prefer the text. I get them more quickly. And I can also send you short videos back if you need it. Um, so anyway, do you guys have any other questions or things you want me to make sure I clarify? Okay then. Well, thank you guys for joining me. I'm going to start putting this recording onto the YouTube channel. And please let me know if you have any questions.